Okay, today we have David Wolfin, the CEO of Avino Silver and Gold Mines. Thanks for joining us, David.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. So tell us a little bit about yourself, David.
David Wolfin, President and CEO. I grew up in the industry. I worked at the Avino Mine as a teenager back in the 80s. Worked in Nevada at a heap leach mine. Studied geology and business, and worked in the finance industry in the late 80s, early 90s, and been working with Avino ever since, mid 90s to now.
Wow, it's a long time.
Yeah.
Have you seen a lot of cycles of gold and silver through that time, go up and down?
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's good. You guys have been around that long. So tell us about the team and what makes them different.
Well, we've got 400 staff at the mine. There's 15 people in our office. We have 100% Mexican labor force, right up to our chief operating officer. He's a graduate of Colorado School of Mines. We've got engineers on the board of directors, metallurgists, finance people. So we're well-rounded.
Right, and how about the board?
Yeah, the board, the chairman's Peter Latta. He's a mining engineer. Myself, and a few others on there.
Okay. So talk about the company and some of the projects you have and where they are.
The main asset is the Avino Mine. We've got 37 years of production, combined production under our belt. Currently, we're producing 2.2 to 2.4 million ounces of silver equivalent on an annual basis. We recently acquired La Preciosa from Coeur Mining in March, and we're planning we just launched at the Gold Show a 5-year plan to grow our production by 350%. We want to be an intermediate producer within 5 years.
Wow. Compared to your peers, you guys are veterans. So, I mean, the average mine is what, maybe 20 years? And you guys are 37, said?
Oh, yeah, on and off. We've been operating for 37. We have 60 million metric tons. So our mill is capable of 2,500 tons per day. That represents 60 years of mine life right now.
Oh, wow.
And we're drilling right now. We got 3 drills turning, and we're coming up with great results. So we're even going to grow that number. So we're not going to wait 60 years to mine it. We're going to expand the operation. And there's 3 key assets. It's the Avino Mine, the La Preciosa mine, which is directly beside us, that we acquired from Coeur, and our oxide tailings resource. This is the leftover waste from when we opened pit mined in the 70s and 80s. We didn't have good recovery rates back then, so now we can reprocess it. So we just did 150 drill holes into the tailings facility, and that material is being metallurgically tested, and we'll do a pre-feasibility study next year.
Interesting. So 3 main assets and doing some exploration. Is the exploration all in those 3 areas, or are you guys going to maybe venture?
Right now we're drilling on the Avino Mine from surface below the current mine workings. The mine workings go down to level 17. We have 10 levels right now that are blocked out, so it's not that we're running out of ore. We just want to explore at depth to see. We're all very curious if this is a porphyry style system, and it could be much bigger. And if that's the case, then we'll bring in engineers to help us decide if we should be mining it in a different style. And so we put out a result recently, 290 meters below level 17. We hit 41 meters at 206 grams of silver equivalent. Our cutoff grade to make money is 60 grams. So it's ore grade material.
Interesting. So what is the differentiator from the core break even? What's the multiple?
60 grams.
60 versus, and what do you
We got 206.
Yeah, that's great.
And right now, our cash cost for mining silver equivalent is $10. Our all-in sustaining is $16, but that includes non-cash items. So you got to look at the cash cost. We're one of the lowest in the business and growing. And we expect our all-in sustaining to drop down to $12 by year 4 of this plan, this 5-year plan that we launched at the conference today.
Interesting. Well, that's great. What would you say your competitive advantage is?
One mine. So our competitors, the junior miners that are operating multiple mines, have multiple management teams, that means higher costs. So we're able to operate one mine and keep our costs down.
Interesting. So your overhead for some of the executives is less because it's one mine.
Yeah, but they'd have a lot more middle management because they'd have executives running each mine. So that's what we have a competitive advantage on. Also, we have 100% Mexican labor force right up to our chief operating officer. So the morale is good. We're not sending gringos down there to tell them what to do. He's a graduate of Colorado School of Mines, so he's worked for big mines, and he's great. We've got a first-class guy running the operation down there.
Good. Yeah, you guys sound like real veterans in the business. That's an important factor, especially considering that, gold and silver is getting pulled down by the broader markets, and we need some stable companies.
Yeah, and we're in a safe jurisdiction. We're in rolling farmland, surrounded by infrastructure. There's villages all around us. The mine actually dates back to 1558.
Oh, wow.
Captain Ibert of Cortez's army claimed to have found a mountain of silver. So most people's reaction is there can't be anything left. But they didn't have drill rigs back then. They just mined near the surface. And so there's no exploration at depth on the property. So there's plenty of potential there. We produce a concentrate, so we don't produce silver bars on site, so we're not a risk. There's no security risk. We produce this concentrate. It gets trucked in 40-ton trucks to the West Coast shipping port of Manzanillo, and then it goes on a freighter over to Asia. We sell it to Samsung. They buy 90% of our product. They approached us in 2015 and said that Apple and Intel are promoting they know where the source of the raw materials come from, and that they don't come from slave labor type operations. They only want to deal with ethical companies. And because we were a family-run business all these years, they said, so is Samsung. The largest company on the planet is family-run, But they want the raw materials for all the electronics. So they want everything we produce. And we're getting calls from Hyundai and all these other companies. They want to secure it from the source.
Interesting. So they want full supply chain.
Yeah.
That is.
It's coming.
And has a lot of integrity, family, not slave labor. That's interesting.
And I said, why Avino? We're just a puny company. Why don't you go to Barrick or something like that? They said, well, this is a test case. We're just going to start small.
Interesting. But you're not exactly small.
No. Yeah. About a 65 million market cap.
Yeah.
It's down like with everybody. When we closed the La Preciosa acquisition in March, silver was at $25, $26, and it's dropped. So we didn't get the re-rating when we more than tripled our resources, but we expect that to come. We've got the lowest price to net asset value of our peer groups. So as we deliver on our growth strategy, we expect a re-rating in the stock.
Okay, interesting. We'll have to take, when do you think that'll be? Next year, maybe?
Well, it's a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
So right now we're doing community engagement at La Preciosa. We're hoping to break ground over there next year and start tunneling down to the first level. And there's about 1 million tons in the Gloria vein. We're going to, by the end of next year, we'll be delivering ore to our mill. We have excess capacity in our mill. And there's also 50 tons of broken ore on the surface. So we can start probably by the middle of next year of trucking ore over and processing it. But then it's going to take a few years to ramp down, develop the underground. We want to develop 3 different areas, Gloria, Abundancia, and Martha, and ultimately be pulling 1,500 tons per day out of there. And that will justify a larger expansion in our mill, 1,500 ton per day expansion in 2026, I think, is what we're looking at.
Right. So what is the difference between the shipping to another China or Asia versus your own mill?
Well, we produce a concentrate. It has to go get refined.
Okay.
Yeah. So to build a smelter would be $1 billion. So
okay. Yeah, that'd be a lot.
The only people that have smelters in Mexico are Peñoles and Grupo Mexico, and they have their own mines. And so rarely do they take it from outside sources.
Yeah.
So we had to find somewhere else. And it's very competitive with the trading firms, Glencore, Trafigura. All of them compete for product, and they blend it. They have warehouses in Manzanillo where they blend products to get the best payables.
Interesting. So what are the precious metals you're pulling out?
Silver, gold, and copper.
Okay. Good. What percentage silver, gold?
Right now, at Avino, it's about 50% copper, 17% gold, and the rest silver. That changes next year. It goes to 41% silver, and then up to 68% by the fourth year of our expansion plan. Because the La Preciosa is primarily silver. It's 90% silver and 10% gold. At Avino, that we're mining right now, there's copper in it, which isn't so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the green movement for the globe is going to need more copper.
For sure, and the batteries, definitely. So it sounds like you have a lot of strengths. We like to ask companies, what are the weaknesses and how are you addressing them?
Well, the thing that worries us is metal prices, right? We don't want to slow down this growth that we've got planned. But we do have 4 independent circuits in our mill, so if we had to scale back, we could and still generate revenue without having to completely close. But, all indications are in the medium to long term, metal prices are going higher because we won't be able to keep up with demand. If we're getting rid of combustible engine cars and the solar demand, they need more metals, need more copper, and also the phones, and use silver and gold in there. I think Samsung consumes 5 tons of silver annually.
Wow.
And a ton of gold. So it's being used up.
Yeah, 9% of all silver goes into solar panels. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah, so it's a definite
and growing.
Yeah, and growing for sure.
And then with the green movement, the power grids in all of North America have to be upgraded. Where's all the metal going to come from?
Copper.
And so they're talking like $1 trillion to upgrade power grids. And then old houses need wiring to be able to charge their cars. And so the demand is going to explode in the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah, I agree. So let's get into your shareholder mix, institutional versus public versus insider.
Our largest shareholder is Coeur, because when we closed the deal, they got 14 million shares and 15 million cash. So they've got, they're the largest shareholder. Second is me and management. So, and then the rest, there's some institution, but probably 75% of our issued is retail investors. We're listed on the NYC American. We trade between 500,000 to 1 million shares a day, and on Toronto Stock Exchange, but it's not as liquid there.
So the insiders have been well invested for a long time, sounds like.
Well, yeah. If you ever worked for your father, they don't like to pay their sons. So I had to, build my position over time. I didn't get cheap founder shares because when he founded the company, I was 1 year old. So I purchased my position.
Interesting. Wow, sweat equity.
Yeah.
Sweat equity.
Not just that. They say, well, how much skin you got in the game? I got blood, sweat, and tears. I worked in the mine.
Yeah, that's good. From the roots to the executive team. Yeah, that's great. So talk about your financials. How much cash, runway?
So we had about 30 million in the bank. We gave 15 to Coeur. And then we're building a dry stack tailing storage facility, so state of the art, ethical way to store tailings. That costs about 4 million. So after the transaction, we were down about 9 or 10 million. Now we're back up to about 11 or 12 million and growing. We generated 4.1 EBITDA in Q2 and 1.2 million of free cash flow in Q2. Q1, we generated 2.5 million of free cash flow. So we're building up our treasury. We don't need to go to the market for these expansions. We've got a few years to figure that out. And with the feasibility study that we're doing on the oxide tailings, we'll have reserves. So then we can go get a credit facility from a regular bank. So then we'll have another option should we want to utilize that if our equity is too low. But we got good leverage to silver. That was evident back on February 1st, 2021, when the Reddit army had the silver squeeze. We traded 129 million shares in one day with only 89 million shares issued. The stock doubled. We have an active ATM and a shelf-based prospectus. So we sold $17 million worth of stock, twice the price we were trading the day before. And that's the cash we used to buy La Preciosa. And we haven't used it since because we were only opportunistic, only because we own the stock. Our remuneration is aligned with the shareholders. We want the stock to go up. So we don't want to issue shares if we don't have to.
Interesting. It sounds like you got a lot of major expenses out of the way.
Yeah.
And then explain to the listener what the silver squeeze was.
So the Reddit army, which everyone knows who they are, they got together and figured silver's being manipulated by J.P. Morgan and these big companies. Let's get them. So they ganged up and they moved the market. It was for one day, but all the silver stocks took off. You know, they traded huge volume because there's not many.
Right.
So
similar to AMC, Squeeze, and GameStop, but they did it to silver.
Yeah.
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 Interesting. I forgot about that day.
Yeah,
it was
fantastic.
I was not in at the right time.
Well, look at our price to net asset value, 28 cents, and our peers, the junior peers, are trading 3 times higher, and to the intermediates where we want to be in 5 years, they're trading 10 times higher than us. So we have a clear path to transformational growth that we're following. It's just time and money. It's not luck. It's not like we got to go do M&A. We're just focused on that.
Oh, interesting. So you're trading a lot lower compared to your peers.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you know, it's not anything we did wrong. We just went down with the pack. Right. And when we did the acquisition at the end of March, there was no re-rating because metal prices dropped and everybody got out of the sector.
Interesting.
But it looks like things are bottomed out. Hopefully we go up from here, but it's short term, it's hard to predict. You don't know with what's going on with the governments and raising interest rates, which is, you know, not good for gold, and gold's the leading indicator, but for how long are they going to raise interest rates? Or not forever, and eventually the market will see, okay, it stopped, now it should go down, and that's when gold probably will start to go up again.
Yeah. Well, I think all things are a big asset bubble, and everything competes with cash. So people are so over leveraged that when the market goes down, they need the margin calls, they need to sell, and gold.
Throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, gold and silver get down with it. But I think it'll be the first one to go back up.
But if you look at what the billionaires have done in the mining space, they're all buying right now, like in this type of environment. Robert Friedland was the keynote speaker there today, and everyone loves him, you know, like, man, and he's just saying there's not enough copper on the planet to sustain what's coming our way.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. You know? Yeah, we're behind the 8 ball, especially since we're less reliant on China now. We have to bring some of our manufacturing back, and, you know, get more raw materials and base metals from ourselves. So.
But we all got used to having cheap products.
Yeah.
So if we're going to manufacture them in North America, what are they going to sell it at?
I know, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
What kind of future opportunities do you see? Possible exit strategies? How do you believe in M&A and things like that?
Well, right now we divested of other mines. We're just focused on this one. We sold the Braylorn mine in 2019. It's a gold mine in Canada. Because it was dissipating our energy. We're not a big enough company to be able to manage multiple assets. That's why their costs escalate. So we got rid of that. And now we own shares in that other public company that owns it. And so we're just focused on our own project. You know, the goal is to get to be $1 billion company. And at that time, we'll see if we want to start acquiring other assets.
Okay, makes sense. So you would say your costs are definitely lower than the peers and your input costs because of how long you've been around, and you're in Mexico, things of that nature.
Yeah, good relations with the locals there. Very low labor turnover. They've worked for us for decades. Our aunts or uncles in the local villages. You come to the parking lot at Avino, and you'll see license plates from the U.S., like New Mexico, Arizona. Mm-hmm. And I was asking our chief operations, I'm like, what is this? He goes, you created a job for them to come home to, like a good paying job. So they don't want to do agricultural work if they don't have to in another country. So a lot of them have come back and they're working for us.
Interesting. Well, that's a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like your company is very well established. Got some great numbers. I think it'd be a great opportunity for investors to take a look. What kind of last thoughts or input would you like to give?
Like to look at how cheap we are, and I guess people have to look at what their time horizon is on their investments. 5 years, I feel, is not too long to wait for good returns. So I hope that people will take a good look at Avino and consider it for their portfolio. I tell everyone that every portfolio deserves a silver lining. Let that be Avino.
That's good. I like that. People are going to remember that. They will definitely remember that. What? How do they find out about you? Keep up with you? Newsletter, website. What else?
Oh yeah, social media, website. Basically, people can join our email list, and they'll get the news released the day it comes out, and that's the best way. And they can reach out to us by email, and we have virtual meetings every once in a while. We have earnings webcasts, and people can join in and to learn about us.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your time, David.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.